Thanks to Dollar Shave Club for sponsoring this video. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/geographics to get your starter set for just $5. Down on the sunny coasts of the French Riviera sits a country of ridiculous proportions. The sovereign principality of Monaco is so tiny it would make Rhode Island appear a colossus. Measuring a mere 2 square kilometers, it is the second smallest nation on Earth and the smallest to hold its own UN seat. Were you to drop Monaco into New York's Central Park, it wouldn't even fill 3/4 of the space. Yet modern Monaco isn't just some joke nation or a relic from the past. Its GDP per capita is the second highest in the world. Aristocrats, celebrities, and shady Russian oligarchs all call it home, and its royal family are so rich they make Queen Elizabeth look like a penniless street urchin. But how did all of this happen? How did a mere strip of land at the bottom of France both retain its independence and become Europe's money capital? Well, today, Geographics, we're slapping on the sun cream, jumping into our mega yacht and heading to the French Riviera to uncover the truth of the world's most unusual microstate. If you were to take a boat past Cannes and Nice towards Italy, you'd soon find yourself alongside a peculiar bay. Seen from the Mediterranean's clear waters, it looks like nothing special, a cluster of high-rises and a jam-packed port, all nestled beneath imposing hills. But far from being just another resort town, this strip of urban life is far more interesting. Its name is Monaco, and it's the second smallest country in the world. The history of this micronation, a place so small it could fit inside tiny Liechtenstein 80 times over, begins back in our ancient world. Under the name Monaco, it first pops up in the works of Greek writer Hecataeus of Miletus around 500 BC. Like today, ancient Monaco was a port city, and just like today, it had its fair share of celebrities. During its time as an ancient Greek satellite, it was said Hercules had passed through the bay on the way to one of his labors. Julius Caesar himself stopped there on his way back from Gaul in 50 BC, just months before he crossed the Rubicon and transformed Roman history. The settlement even boasted the corpse of a Christian saint. In the early 4th century AD, the battered body of Saint Devotee was washed up on the shore, a victim of Emperor Diocletian's anti-Christian purge. But we shouldn't kid ourselves that ancient Monaco is all that relevant to the country of today. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476, the place was utterly abandoned. And abandoned it stayed all the way until the 12th century. It was at this point that it came into the orbit of the Holy Roman Empire. According to Voltaire, neither Holy Roman nor an empire, the Holy Roman Empire was nonetheless a European behemoth, a gigantic mess of kingdoms, statelets, free cities, principalities, duchies, and whatever else Central Europe had kicking around. From 1162, that included Monaco. Well, nominally it did. In reality, Emperor Frederick Barbarossa granted it to the nearby Republic of Genoa, a place that was supposed to be part of his empire, but in reality just sort of did its own thing. See what we mean about the Holy Roman Empire being an unholy mess? Anyway, the Genoese finally got around to staking their claim in 1215, sending a member of the Ghibelline faction to place a foundation stone on the headland and declare it their property. But the Ghibelline wouldn't hold Monaco for long. In those days, Genoa's aristocracy was split between two factions, the Ghibellines, who were all about the Holy Roman Emperor, and the Guelphs, who were all like, nah dude, the Pope is totally where it's at. Towards the ends of the 13th century, these two factions decided the arguments could only be settled by super killing one another, and a minor civil war broke out. It's at this point that Grimaldis enter Monaco's story. Members of the We Heart the Pope faction, the Grimaldis were exiled from Genoa by their Ghibelline rivals, but they didn't plan to go quietly. On January 8, 1297, Francois Grimaldi disguised himself as a friar and knocked on the door of the Monaco fortress asking for shelter. Because Ghibelline is apparently medieval for succor, the small guard post let Francois in, at which point he promptly drew a hidden sword and massacred them all. It was the beginning of over 7 centuries of Grimaldi rule in Monaco. In that time, this strip of land would go from random minor fort to fully fledged nation. If you clicked on this video mostly curious to know how Monaco survived as an independent state, here's the moment you've been waiting for. As rulers of Monaco, the Grimaldis survived by making themselves extremely useful to anyone bigger than they were. During the 100 Years' War, they built boats for the French to use fighting the English. In the 15th century, they allowed themselves to become a vassal of Savoy in return for protection against Genoa. When at the start of the 16th century, the French needed a friendly port, the Grimaldis ditched Savoy and cozied up to France again, leading Louis XII declaring Monegasque independence was instituted by God and the sword, a fancy way of saying, okay, you're cool, we won't conquer you. In short, Monaco under the Grimaldis was a bit like that weedy kid in high school who'd slink around after the biggest jocks, laughing at all their dumb jokes and hoping it saved him from being pantsed. Unlike this weedy kid though, Monaco did some figurative pantsing of its own. Between 1344 and 1355, the Grimaldis annexed the two towns of Menton and Roquebrune, expanding their territory by nearly 90%. Yes, incredible as it seems, there are places in the world that have actually been conquered by Monaco. Not long after Louis XII made his big declaration, Monaco switched allegiances again, this time cozying up to France's rival Spain. Now you might think a massive place like Spain wouldn't give two craps about tiny Monaco, but the idea of France having to deal with the geopolitical equivalent of a hostile chihuahua on its doorstep evidently tickled Madrid. Over the next century or so, Spain went out of its way to keep the Grimaldis happy. When they decided in 1619 that they were fed up being mere lords of Monaco and upgraded themselves to princes, Madrid cheered them on. In 1633, they even recognized the Grimaldis as a legitimate royal family. But no sooner had Monaco got this recognition than the Grimaldis were opening secret negotiations with France to ditch Spain for good. At the time, Europe was in the grip of the 30 Years' War. Nominally a war about Catholics versus Protestants, it somehow transformed into a proxy battle between the two Catholic powers of France and the Habsburgs over who got to be king of the European castle. Since Spain was a Habsburg possession, France wanted to lure away as many of their allies as possible, even when those allies were microscopic. Hence Cardinal Richelieu convincing the latest Louis on the French throne, Louis XIII, to give Monegasque whatever the hell they wanted. On September 14, 1641, the two states signed the Treaty of Peronne, recognizing Monaco's royal family, guaranteeing its security, and bringing it back into the French fold. It was a great bit of diplomatic footwork, and the Grimaldis celebrated by annexing the town of La Turbie. By now, Monaco was a decent-sized statelet with an absolute monarchy and a neat little racket taxing ships passing to and from Italy. They were protected by the superpower of the era, and even capable of fielding an army that could actually win battles, something other microstates like Liechtenstein would never manage. But there's a problem with basing your entire defense policy on the protection of a powerful neighbor. What happens when that neighbor becomes your enemy? The first warning that not everything was cool came in 1760. With France distracted by the 7 Years' War, Sardinia attacked and stole Monaco's shiny new town of La Turbie, greatly reducing the principality's size. It was a humiliation for Monaco, but it should have been a warning that Paris couldn't always defend them. But this time, the Grimaldis elected not to go looking for a new power to be BFFs with. It was a decision that would almost destroy them. In 1789, Louis XVI called a meeting of France's Estates General to push through some financial reforms. Unfortunately, the Estates General were way more interested in getting a written constitution than solving a debt crisis and declared a sovereign national assembly to do so. It was the start of the French Revolution. Anointing themselves the real power in France, the assembly passed laws doing stuff like abolishing feudalism. Sadly, for the feudal state of Monaco, they applied the law there as well. Holdings of the Monegasque royal family were seized, but this was just the start. 3 years later, the now very revolutionary assembly sent in the army. On October 22nd, 1792, Monaco was invaded and overrun. It was the beginning of the end of the 500-year-old statelet. In January 1793, Monaco proper, Roquebrune, and Menton all created their own citizen assemblies, modelled after the one in Paris. On February 14th, those assemblies voted to be annexed into France. Paris swallowed Monaco, imprisoned the royal family, and expropriated all their holdings. The vast art collection was carted away. The palace turned into a hospital. Really, that should have been it. By rights, we should now be rolling the credits and telling you to smash that like button. But the Grimaldis wound up getting lucky. When Napoleon's rule collapsed in 1814, Monaco was able to get invited to the Congress of Vienna, the massive gathering/epic party Austria's wily Chancellor Metternich set up to hammer out the shape of post-Napoleonic Europe. At the Congress, against all odds, Monaco was resurrected and made a protectorate of Piedmont Sardinia. This wasn't the best possible outcome. The Grimaldis were now under their former enemies. But at least Monaco as an independent state survived. Sadly, it would soon become a a much reduced state. In early 1848, a series of revolutions kicked off across Europe, spreading from nation to nation like wildfire. In the Italian states, this kick-started the First Italian War of Independence, as Charles Albert of Piedmont, Sardinia led a crusade across Austria. Over in Monegasque territories of Menton and Roquebrune, the people took one look at the heroic exploits in Italy, a second look at their own Weasley Grimaldi rulers, and thought, well, to hell with this. On March the 21st, the two towns revolted, kicked out their Monegasque overlords, and declared their intention to join Piedmont, Sardinia. To which Charles Albert was all like, sure thing, bro. Although Monaco would fight its hardest to get its towns back, they'd never succeed. In 1860, the new French Emperor Napoleon III, or Louis Napoleon, signed a treaty with Charles Albert to help him kick the Austrians out of Italy. As part of the treaty, Piedmont Sardinia ceded Nice and Savoy to France, but Louis Napoleon decided this wasn't enough and took Menton and Roquebrune along with them. While Monaco might have been able to get its lost territory back from Piedmont Sardinia, there was no way they were ever going to get it back from France. In a little over a decade, Monaco had lost 90% of its land. It was now just a tiny scrap of coast, a few scrubby hills, and about 1,000 unhappy farmers. In short, the Grimaldis were desperately broke. If their micronation was going to survive, they'd need to come up with a plan. Fortunately, the prince was about to hit on an idea that would change everything. And speaking of ideas that would absolutely change everything, how about getting some awesome toiletry products delivered to your door right when you need them? And that's what today's sponsor, Dollar Shave Club, can do for you. Dollar Shave Club covers all of your grooming needs, shower, oral care, deodorants, and of course, most importantly, shaving. Now obviously I don't shave my beard, but I do shave my head, and that experience has become so much easier since switching to Dollar Shave and using their high-quality blades. Dollar Shave Club sent me their Ultimate Shave Starter Set, of course razors and blades, their executive 6-blade system. Then they also sent me the Prep Scrub, used that before. Then you put on some shave butter for the actual shave. Then afterwards use this post-shave dew, which I find I get a little bit of dry skin on my head after I've shaved, so I slap some of that on, and it's really keeps it nice and moisturized. So visit dollarshaveclub.com/geographics and get their Ultimate Shave Starter Set for only $5 and round out your grooming routine by adding any of their other high-quality products. After that, the restock box ships full-size products at regular price. Let's get back to it. Of all the people in Monaco's tortured history, none has been so important as Charles III. Crowned prince in 1856, Charles came to the throne having been dealt the worst hand possible. His principality had no money, no infrastructure, and the locals were one tax hike away from revolution. But like a gifted poker player, Charles took that crummy hand and spun it into gold. And yes, those gambling metaphors are a massive bit of foreshadowing. The idea Charles hit upon came in two stages: the decent part and the brilliant part. The decent part was to build a casino in Monaco to attract wealthy visitors. Not long after Charles took the throne, this casino opened under the management of the Société de Bains de Mer et du Cercle des Strangers. Apologies for my French pronunciation, or SBM. It didn't do particularly well. In one 6-day period, for example, it recorded a single visitor. But then Charles hit upon the brilliant part of his plan. He invited Francois Blanc to run the SBM. A casino manager in Bad Homburg, Blanc had turned attracting wealthy clients into an art form. It was Blanc who'd pioneered the concept of breaking the bank when a player cleaned out a table. Knowing this would attract more players, Blanc didn't hide these massive losses. Instead, he publicized them by doing stuff like draping the table in a black mourning cloth. When the table reopened, other punters would try their luck, hoping to repeat the trick. As Blanc knew, in such situations, the house always wins. Importantly for Charles, Blanc used a cut of his casino's income to pay for Bad Homburg's infrastructure and keep its local prince solvent. So Charles begged him to come repeat the trick in Monaco. In 1863, Blanc agreed. His decision would transform the principality. Down in Monaco, Blanc pulled out all the stops. He reworked the casino, turning it into a plush, exclusive establishment. He gave the area a name that would soon become world famous: Monte Carlo. But the real brainwave was building a rail line into France. Suddenly, Monaco was Paris's hot new destination. In no time at all, the casino was generating more money than Charles could have dreamed. Aside from infrastructure investment, Blanc only gave 10% of Monte Carlo's profits to the state, but that was still so much that by 1869, Monaco's citizens were absolved of paying taxes. By the time Blanc died in 1877, leaving the casino's operations to his son, Camille, Monaco was booming. But not everyone was happy. Charles's son, Albert, despised gambling. Already illegal for Monegasque citizens, Albert swore that when he became prince, he'd outlaw the practice in Monaco entirely. And he was good to his word. As soon as he took the throne in 1889, Albert put in motion plans to close Monte Carlo. It was at this time, as Camille Blanc was in danger of watching his father's cash cow be slaughtered, that something strange happened. On July the 28th, 1891, a 50-year-old Englishman named Charles de Ville-Wells walked into the casino and made a beeline for one roulette table. There he sat, not even pausing for food or drink, and proceeded to enjoy one of the greatest winning streaks in history. For 5 days straight, Wells won spin after spin. In one session, he won 23 spins in a row. By the end of the week, he'd broke the bank 10 times and won $500,000, equivalent to all the money in today's terms. No sooner had Wells taken his winnings and left than punters were flocking to Monte Carlo in such droves that not even Albert could ignore the cash it generated. Today, the source of Wells's winning streak remains unknown, but many suspect Camille Blanc rigged the game. Wells had previously worked for the Blanc family in nearby Nice. Like his father, Camille knew the PR value of a punter winning big. Is it too much to imagine that he might have engineered Wells's winning streak to force Albert's hand? Regardless, Monte Carlo Casino survived, though Albert changed the treaty to divert even more of its earnings into his family's pockets. But Camille Blanc didn't object. Like his father, he knew that where casinos are concerned, the house always wins. As the 20th century dawned, Monaco was filthy rich, world famous, and finally in possession of decent infrastructure. But there's one thing its citizens didn't have: any legal rights. By now, most monarchies in Europe had made their royals figureheads, or at least balanced their power against a civilian government. But Monaco was still an absolute monarchy in the old-fashioned sense. Monegasque had no rights except those that the prince deigned to give them. In 1910, the citizenry finally decided to show their prince who was boss. The Monegasque Revolution may be the politest uprising in history. There were no stormings of prisons, no manning the barricades, no dudes getting their heads chopped off. As one account put it, the most violent moment came when Émile Bernich, who was one of the symbols of these French advisors who surrounded the prince, was publicly scolded. So I mean, whoa, calm down there, citizens of Monaco. You might make one of your hated oppressors feel mildly upset. The climax of the revolution came on March 6, 1910, when 800 of Monaco's 1,500 citizens politely walked to the palace to address their complaints, although shocking incidents of revolutionaries shouting rude words at the prince continued well into October. Nonetheless, the heckling worked. Fearing a proper revolution, Albert granted a constitutional charter which guaranteed basic rights. Sadly, one of those rights wasn't the right not to have your rights suspended, and Albert annulled the charter the moment World War I broke out, despite Monaco remaining neutral. However, the cat was now out of the bag. From 1910 on, Monaco would no longer be an absolute monarchy, but a place with written laws, even if many of those laws only confirmed the prince's massive powers. But powerful as he was in Monaco, the prince was still just a pawn of France. In 1918, before the war had even ended, Paris was meddling in the principality's affairs with the same gusto as the CIA trying to topple a Latin American leader. First, they forced a change to the line of succession, lest Monaco's throne fall to Albert's German cousin Wilhelm. Then they put Monaco under a new treaty that subordinated all its international economic, political, and security decisions to Paris. They even included a clause that should the Grimaldi line die out, Monaco would cease being independent and become a part of France. So yes, while Monaco remained independent on paper, it was the sort of independence that involved having a bigger state telling them exactly what to do. Sadly, you can see the effects this had all too clearly in World War II. At the outbreak of war in 1939, Monaco once again declared itself neutral. At the time, the German-educated Louis II was on the throne and probably hoped Hitler would leave his tiny state free. But while the Nazis didn't take Monaco during their 1940 invasion of France, they did expect Louis to be cool with the Vichy regime. Unfortunately, Louis was maybe a little too cool with it. Marshal Pétain was an old military buddy of Louis, and the two were still close, so when Pétain asked Louis to register all the nation's Jews, the prince agreed. On July 3rd, 1941, Monaco began registering all of its Jewish residents. Tragically, the vast majority were refugees who'd fled France, assuming neutral Monaco would protect them. Instead, Monaco handed several over to Vichy French authorities, who sent them to the death camps. Today, the state of Monaco officially acknowledges deporting 92 Jews during the Holocaust, although the Simon Wiesenthal Center estimates that the true number ran into the hundreds. Now, it's arguable Louis II didn't really have a choice. Had the Nazis decided to annex Monaco, as they eventually would in 1943, there was no way the Monegasque could have stopped them. Still, the fate of Monaco's Jews leaves a nasty taste in the mouth, especially as it is often airbrushed from official histories. Sometimes it seems the price of neutrality just isn't worth paying. It was May of 1944 when Rainier III became Monaco's heir. The timing couldn't have been better. Barely had the future prince got the news that Paris was being liberated by the Allies. Knowing their position was untenable, the Germans abandoned Monaco on the 3rd of September. The state had been liberated without a single shot fired. Impressively, the new heir wasn't content to leave things at that. Rainier enlisted in the French army and fought in the Alsace campaign, winning the Croix de Guerre. When he ascended to the throne in 1949, his army experience went a long way toward rehabilitating Monaco after Louis II's disappointing rule. With the war now in the rearview mirror, it was time for Monaco to enter the modern age. Under Rainier III, Monaco became the glitzy, sun-drenched, celebrity-filled, tax-dodging place that you picture today. In 1956, the prince married actress Grace Kelly, instilling Monaco with a star power it's never really lost. He also pivoted the economy away from the Monte Carlo casino, instead promoting his nation as a tax haven for the planet's wealthiest. This last change, by the way, very nearly caused a blow-up with France. Fed up with France's wealthiest moving to Monaco to avoid income tax, and French companies using it as a base for the same purposes, in 1962, Charles de Gaulle demanded that the principality change its rules. When Rainier refused, de Gaulle blockaded the country, closed the borders, and cut off the supply of French francs, which was Monaco's currency. This blockade lasted 4 months before Rainier cracked, changing the law so only French people who lived in the principality more than 5 years were tax-exempt. But while this change and new rules for companies operating there made Monaco less of a tax haven for the French, it continued to lure in the wealthy from countries all over the world. And Rainier played this like a pro. While income tax remained non-existent, he implemented a sales tax on all purchases. The effect was an economy turbocharged by the super-rich spending like crazy. By 1966, enough money was even coming in for Monaco to start land reclamation. The Fontvieille district was added where once there had only been ocean, expanding the principality by 25%. It was also under Rainier that Monaco finally joined the UN, something France had long blocked, and renegotiated the 1918 treaty with Paris. In 2002, Paris finally dropped the clause that the Grimaldi dynasty going extinct would trigger Monaco's absorption into France. When Rainier III died on April 6, 2005, it was as Prince of the Monaco today, a place of spotless streets and sun-drenched yachts, but one only made possible by rich foreigners trying to avoid paying tax at home, including plenty of dodgy Russian oligarchs and Italian gangsters. Yet despite the ostentatious wealth, despite the blind eyes turned to sleaze and corruption, Monaco remains a fascinating place. The idea that an entire nation a mere 2 square kilometers could survive centuries of wars, revolutions, and annexations is all sorts of amazing, and not only survive, but actually thrive, becoming one of the richest countries on Earth. Its existence may be improbable, may in fact just be a historic fluke, but there's something comforting about Monaco's ability to withstand the storms of history. In these uncertain times, when the entire world seems close to collapse, it's nice to think that there's an unlikely little state out there that's surviving everything the centuries could throw at it. It may not be a perfect place, but Monaco is a survivor. For that reason alone, it deserves to be celebrated. And I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. Brand new videos just like this every week. Also, please do check out our fantastic sponsor, Dollar Shave Club, linked to below. And thank you for watching.